Good morning, everybody. I'll call this virtual meeting of State Government Finance and Elections Committee to order. Today is March 31st, 2022, and pursuant to House Rule 10.01, this meeting is being held virtually. Mr. Brinks, can you please take the roll?
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Present.
Nelson is present. Vice Chair Carlson.
Carlson present.
Carlson is present. Representative Nash.
Present.
Nash is present. Representative Bonner.
Present.
Bonner is present. Representative Drazkowski. Representative Elkins.
Elkins present.
Elkins is present. Representative Greenman.
Greenman present.
Greenman is present. Representative Klevorn.
Klevorn present.
Klevorn is present. Representative Kosnick.
Present.
Kosnick is present. Representative Mason. Representative New Brindley.
Present.
New Brindley is present. Representative Pulowski. Representative Quam.
I am here.
Quam is present. Representative Drazkowski is just being admitted now. Representative Mason.
Mason present.
Mason is present. Representative Pulowski. Chair, with that, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum and make note that Representative Drazkowski has joined us. Members, the next order of business is our minutes. Representative Carlson, you get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have reviewed the minutes and would like to move them for approval.
Representative Carlson moves approval of the minutes for March 29th, 2022. If members want to unmute for a second. All in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Members, we have a aggressive agenda this morning. We are going to be meeting up till noon. Hopefully we get done earlier than that. But members, the first bill on our agenda is House File 4306. Representative Murphy. I will move House File 4306 be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. And Representative Murphy, if you want to describe your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate your attention and your listening to House File 4306, which is a skeleton bill which would invest money in all of the pension plans for all of the public employees organizations that the Legislative Commission on Retirement and State Service and City Service and County Service and Township Service monitors the retirement of the people that are working for every day for all Minnesotans at all times. We have the commission set up, and usually the commission does not have an amount of money that is assigned to them as a target or a known amount of money that they can spend for investing in retirement services for all the employees that I mentioned before. For sure, we have the State Board of Investments and the returns that they make on their investments in the world. But sometimes there's not a bit of extra money from the State Board of Investments. We also have crisis situations where someone needs help or some pension fund is in arrears and falling suddenly. Then sometimes there's an influence of new monies that come in, but never do we have continually investment in pensions, except for the employees' contributions at every level, from the township level to the county level, to the city level, to the region level, to the state level, or in the state agencies. We do not have a line item for investing in pensions and retirements. The main part of the retirements that come for our public employees across the state, in every area, in every representative's district, and probably in every precinct of the state, there are public employees on retirement and their spouses that are counting on good returns on their investments. I have been on a rant for over 20 years in the State Pension Commission about why isn't this a line item in the governor's budget? Why isn't it a main target in the speaker's budget? And I get many reasons, not any of them sufficient enough to move us out of a crisis or move us from getting into a crisis. House File 4306 is a skeleton that could be invested in if we have the courage and the foresight to move forward. The supplementary budget of the governor has a recommendation for cost of living increases. COLAs, we call them. This bill also has COLAs. This bill has other adjustments that would be made to retirements. 5 articles. Even one article, investment in one article, would set us on the path or the journey to making significant investments so that we don't have crisis situations in the future. And that's what I'm asking for today. Investment in the pensions for the workers that we have and will have going forward in the future. From the plow drivers to the lawnmowers to the clerks at every level of state employment, city employment, county employment, regional partnerships, anyone who has a state pension that is reserved in the, whose funds are in the Board of Investment Funds, deserves consideration from House File 4306. In your packets, there's a short summary from the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirements. Article 1 talks about increases in in the COLAs, cost of living increases. Article 2, it's a temporary reduction in employee contributions. If we have to take one of these articles away, Article 2 would be the first one that I would take away. Article 3 talks about the reduction of investment rate of return on assumption. The LCPR has been talking about this year. We have not yet concluded that it is going to go to 7% as the state directors are asking. So we have still yet to have further conversation about that in LCPR. But we are talking about going down from 7.5% down to 7%. And if I had to say, I'd say there's pretty good rate, a pretty good assumption that we would go to 7%. Pretty good chance of that. Article 4 talks about increasing and extending direct state aid to certain plans, the PERA, police and fire, the St. Paul teachers, the MSRS judges plan. And Article 5 talks about corrections in all the plans and assumption rates, changing rates. But Article 5 is a little pricey. Please consider this. Please consider moving this to the next committee so that we can continue our work in the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement, other than the work that Representative Nelson is going to present to you on the next step of the agenda, which is non-controversial issues that have made it through the Pensions and Retirement Commission already. Your neighbors, your relatives, your friends, your constituents all know someone who is receiving one of the pensions that have contributed all their years of service for the public good of the state of Minnesota. As I said, in every single legislative district, we have employees that have served and contributed to these funds and expect to be able to retire with dignity. And some cost of living increases as the economy changes. We know what's happened in the last 2 years as a result of the pandemic. With the world situation that we're in today, we don't know what the future holds for us. But the people that have contributed their talents and services to all of our public entities across the state, they deserve to have a worry-free income until they go to the new world. It's changing every day for all the public employees, whether they're working or whether they're retired. It's not easy to remember what it was like when you had the family all gathered around for supper. And now the family's all gone, and you find out when you're 74 years old that you're an orphan, because every person in your family has deceased. But many people on retirement come to that conclusion sometime during their retirement. Or someone who's worked side by side for 60 years with their spouse, or 65 years, or 70 years, or 10 years, and find out that the person that they were going to retire with is gone. There are hardships every single day, but we get up and we rise up and we still go to the volunteer jobs that we have. We still participate in city government or township government or state government in some ways. Or we get on our computer and we send a note to our state representative and say, please consider the rule of 90. That is not in this bill. Because when we did have that bill, when we did have the rule of 90, it wasn't one of the first 5 choices that people made. It wasn't an option. Really. Because they didn't, if they had been, they would have taken and run. And they didn't. They stuck in there and worked longer so that their spouse could have health insurance on their public retirement. So there's many things to consider, and there's many things, but the state has to, at some point in time, realize that we have to contribute more to the employees, or the cities have to realize they have to contribute more to the retirement of the people that have served us and earned their public retirement checks. And this is the opportunity to do it in House File 4306. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Representative Murphy, Chair Murphy. We've got some testifiers, and I will start with Mr. Ethan Vogel, if you want to introduce yourself and then proceed with your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Nelson. My name is Ethan Vogel. I'm Legislative Director with Absentee Council 5. Absentee is a union of more than 43,000 workers in Minnesota. Tens of thousands of these members are actively contributing to our state's pension funds with a promise from their employer that someday when they retire, they'll be able to do that with dignity and have a fulfilling retirement. When it comes to our pensions, our highest priority is ensuring the long-term stability of the funds, so the promise of a dignified retirement is never jeopardized. I want to thank Representative Murphy for prioritizing this issue this session and so many other sessions. And I will be very brief because I don't have much to add after how she so eloquently laid this issue out. The high rates of inflation, which consumers are experiencing, are eroding the purchasing power of wages and pension benefits. And it's important that this problem is addressed in a meaningful way this session. The specific benefit split contained in this bill, or the percentage of funded benefits which would be realized by each the active member groups and the retiree member groups, may not be the exact split we would endorse at the end. But the principle of shared sacrifice, or in this case, shared benefit, which is a long tradition for our pension reforms, is very much appreciated. And prioritizing this issue, again, is very much appreciated. And I understand this is a work in progress. We look forward to reaching an agreeable compromise as we move through the legislative process. The inclusion of the shared benefit for active employees is a critical component of this proposal, especially if the COLAs are going to have a compounding effect. Again, I want to reiterate that our highest priority is the long-term stability of our pension funds. Any changes to benefits paid out or contributions paid in must be funded with additional resources so our pension plans remain actuarially funded. And once more, thank you so much, Representative Murphy, for your work prioritizing this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. The next person I have on my list is Devin Bruce. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the tape and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Devin Bruce. I'm the Public Affairs Coordinator for the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE. We're a union of representing over 15,000 professional employees across all agencies, boards, and commissions. We just want to briefly comment and share our thanks to Representative Murphy and for Chair Nelson for bringing forth House File 4306 to address concerns that we're hearing from both our actives and retirees regarding the state pension funds. We also want to thank Representative Murphy for her approach, similar to what AFSCME had stated in sharing some relief for both our active employees in the form of a short-term contribution reduction and retirees in the form of a COLA increase. And finally, we truly appreciate that there is a strong investment from the general fund that does not rely solely on active member contribution increases or cuts to retiree benefits. We have a little bit of concern with the permanency of the COLA increase and the effect it may have on our actives' contribution sufficiency and the security of the fund, but we recognize that this is a strong starting point for a long overdue conversation. And we thank you for your time and your efforts on this.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. The next person I have on my list is Brian Rice. Welcome to the committee and state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you so much, Chair Nelson. My name is Brian Rice. I'm here this morning representing the Minnesota Professional Firefighters. That's an organization of 2,000 members and 46 locals throughout the state of Minnesota. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Minnesota Police Fraternal Association. That's a group of retired police officers and their surviving spouses of about 850 people. And let me really thank you, Representative Murphy, for introducing this bill. You said you were on a rant. You are not on a rant. You are sharing with your fellow members your wisdom. And if anything, I would say you're more like the prophet Elijah in the desert, crying out a very, very important message. We have not targeted money for pensions. And as I'll explain, Minnesota has done pensions on the cheap for far too long. Or maybe more accurately, the legislature has allowed state governments and local governments to not invest in pensions the way other groups do. The national average on spending for pensions throughout the country is 5% of total state and local government expenditures. Minnesota, looking at the most recent NASRA report, National Association of State Retirement Fund Administrators, shows we are 2.38%. We are now 46th in the nation on spending. So the myth that pensions are somehow impeding state government is just not the facts. And I'll be showing you that report later. And what's really important is our pension funds administrators and their actuaries are saying you need to lower the assumed rate of return. Right now, we assume 7.5%. Simple math. There's $100 billion in pension assets across all of the funds in the state. If you reduce that number from 7.5% to 7%, you've taken out $500 million annually out of the pension system. That's a significant change. And that's one that might be necessary to make and reach these goals of being very conservative or being wise to make sure and sustain these pensions over the long term. But at the same time, members, the COLAs that were granted July 1st of this year for your state retirees were 1% in almost every case. And in the case of the people I represent, police and fire, it is 1%. And I need to repeat this as much as Representative Murphy does. Police and fire are not in Social Security. So when every other retiree in the country got 5.9% from the federal government, they got 1%. The people who set the COLAs for police and fire are you, Mr. Chair, and members of the legislature. And it's 1%, and it's 1% fixed. And without a change in the next 7 weeks of this session, it will be 1% come January 1 of 2023. So it really is critical, in our opinion, that the legislature look at the COLA issue, look at the COLA issue for all the retirees in the state. There is a cost to that, and doing it on the cheap just simply doesn't work. That's why what Representative Murphy has proposed, $1 billion, and that sounds like a big number, but if you adopt the recommendation of the fund's actuaries, you're going to take $500 million per year for the next endless number of years. I mean, literally the present value of that number is in the tens, if not 20s or 30s billions of dollars out of the pension system. And the state has not been putting those monies in. So what Representative Murphy's saying is absolutely true. We've struggled with finding the resources for pension funds. In 2018, there was a major pension reform. It relied largely on the employees making a shared sacrifice. Their sacrifice was very significant. It is true the state put new money in, which helped stabilize the plan, which also was a good investment because the SBI returned 30% last year. About year to date from July 1st of last year, it's up 2 to 3%. So it's been able to sustain those gains. Obviously, we live in a dangerous world that's been consumed by a pandemic disease, and now there's a war that's affecting everyone in the Ukraine. But this bill is really important, and we're so grateful that you've brought it forward, Representative Murphy. It's really a discussion, as I said, that needs to happen. And I will just quickly, if I can, and I know I'm running out of time, just share this screen. I'm hoping this will pop up. Yes, this is the NASRA report I referred to. It came out in February. It's the concluding page. What's highlighted in yellow is Minnesota is spending 2.38% on its pensions. The national average is 5.16. When you take that in total, the state spends about $25 billion a year. Local government, I believe, spends at least another 15, maybe it's 25 billion. That 3% difference alone is a $1.5 billion annual difference between what the average state spends and what Minnesota spends. So it's a significant difference. You might ask, why can we do that? You've had great investment returns. The SBI is like in the top 10%, frequently even in the top 1% rates of return. So we've lived off the great investment. It's like we had Joe Montana when we had Howard Bicker, and then we picked up Tom Brady when we got Mansco Perry. And he's retiring. And so one of the secret sauces has been we've had great investment returns. I mean, since 1980, the SBI has probably averaged 9 to 10%, well above any of these numbers. But can you bet on that every year? No. So it's not imprudent to do it, but just to take that money out of the system or to pull that back and not make the investment in your public employees when you've got over 200,000 retired Minnesotans who rely on these pensions. And when you have over 300,000 active public employees, that's it's about 11 or 12% of your workforce relies on these pensions. And when they've been locked in at a 1% COLA and inflation is hitting 7 or 8%, please help us out. And thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Murphy, so much for what you do, sharing your wisdom. Don't stop. I want to keep hearing you and the prophet Elijah preach to me every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. I also have a couple people here to help answer questions. Jay Stoffel from the TRA, Amy String from PARA, and Doug Anderson from PARA. And so members, any questions of the bill? Any questions? If not, wait here another second to make sure no hands pop up. If not, Representative Murphy, if you want to give a wrap up, and then we'll get to a vote.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and thank you for the people that testified. Please think about the things that I've said and send this bill on its journey.
Thank you, Ms. Representative Murphy. And with that, Mr. Brinks, will you please take the roll?
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Nelson votes aye. Vice
Oh, wait a
Chair
second,
Carlson.
wait a second. Mr. Chair, I need to renew the motion. I'll renew my motion that House File 4306 be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. Now, Mr. Brinks, take the roll.
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Nelson votes aye. Vice Chair Carlson.
Aye. Carlson votes aye.
Carlson votes aye. Representative Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash votes nay. Representative Bonner.
Aye.
Bonner votes aye. Representative Drazkowski.
No.
Drazkowski votes nay. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins votes aye. Representative Greenman.
Aye.
Greenman votes aye. Representative Klevorn.
Klevorn, aye.
Klevorn votes aye. Representative Kosnick.
No.
Kosnick votes nay. Representative Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason votes aye. Representative New Brindley.
No.
New Brindley votes nay. Representative Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski votes aye. Representative Quam.
No.
Quam votes nay. Chair with a vote of 8 ayes and 5 nays, the motion prevails.
The motion prevails. The bill's on its way to Ways and Means. Thank you, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next bill on our agenda is House File 4017, and that's a Nelson bill. So I'm going to hand the virtual gavel over to Representative Carlson, Vice Chair Carlson. So, Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Chair Nelson. Would you like to move your bill?
I'll move House File 4017 to be referred to the Ways and Means Committee. And Mr. Chair, we have a couple of amendments.
Yes, I see that. Let's start with the DE1 author's amendment. Would you like to move the DE1?
I'll move the DE1 amendment, Mr. Chair. And members, this is the bill that the work that came out of the Pension Commission, the legislative pension on retirement anyway. And so I'd like to move that bill to put the bill in the shape it needs to be.
Wonderful. Let's see. So member discussion to the DE1 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of the DE1 amendment, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The DE1 amendment is adopted. Chair Nelson, I see we have one more amendment, the A4.
The A4 amendment, Mr. Chair, I'll move the A4 amendment, and that is a technical amendment. Just deletes lines 31 and 32 on page 30. And then I think Ms. Lincheski's here. Maybe she can explain it better than I can.
Wonderful. Ms. Lincheski, if you could please introduce yourself and provide any comments to the A4 amendment, please.
Thank you, Representatives Carlson and Nelson. Representative Nelson is correct. This is a technical change. It was put into the DEM sort of last minute prior to the Pension Commission meeting before we were really able to review it. And it changes what was intended, which is to have this limit of $15,000 for volunteer firefighters. It's a per year limit apply. And with these two lines in the bill, it essentially removes that limit, which was not intended. So it is a technical change.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lincheski. Member questions for Ms. Lincheski or Chair Nelson to the A4 amendments? All right, members, if you would please unmute yourself to vote on the A4 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The A4 amendment is adopted. So Chair Nelson, to your bill, as amended.
And Mr. Chair and members, again, this is the bill that came out of the Pension Commission. And the way the Pension Commission works is all the bills on pensions come down through state government finance and go to the Pension Commission. The staff there reviews them, overlooks them. We discuss them, we vote on them, vote what we put in the bill. The majorities are non-cost items, and with one exception. And so, but I'll start with Article 1 on the bill. It's and maybe I'll let Ms. Mincheski walk it through. She's probably got a better handle on all this.
All right. Ms. Lincheski, once again, if you could introduce yourself and provide us with a summary of the omnibus bill, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you, Representatives Nelson and Carlson. My name, as I should have mentioned earlier, Susan Lincheski. I'm the Director of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement. As Representative Nelson just noted, the DE consists of many bills that were approved in the Pension Commission. So it's a compilation of the bills presented. I'll just quickly run through the articles. It'll be very high level. So if any questions come up, I'm happy to get into some details. The first article expands the rights of members of the MSRS retirement plans to purchase service credit for periods of military service. This is a change that was made a few years ago to para, and we're making these same changes now for the MSRS chapters. The second amendment is a set of bills, two bills, which expand the list of positions at the Department of Human Services that are covered by the MSRS correctional plan. It adds two new positions. These are residential program lead and dental hygienist. Article 3 permits retired teachers to return to, I'm sorry, let me backtrack there. What I just described, the new positions in DHS added to correctional plan are actually still part of Article 1. The second set of bills in Article 1 address issues for two individuals. One is the surviving spouse of a deceased state employee. The other is an error related to past service credit for an employee of the Department of Corrections. Article 2 relates to para. I had jumped ahead here. Para, there's two articles here, excuse me, two sections of the Article 2, which deal with employees. The first deals with the employees of the Duluth Transit Authority. They are now, they will be eventually becoming public employees when the DTA acquires a private company. The bill then deletes or exempts these employees from coverage by the para general plan. And in addition, it provides for vesting credit to the non-union employees when they become public employees. This article also reinstates segmented annuities for para members. This is a change to the law that actually was approved back in 2018. I would say probably in error. MSRS added it in 2019, added it back, and we are now adding it back to para. Article 3 relates to the teacher plans. This allows teachers to return to teaching at a public school without having to have their pension reduced. This is similar to what we did for healthcare workers earlier on, and that bill went to the governor. Article 4 deals with volunteer firefighter retirement. It makes some changes to the statewide plan, the plan that is administered by para, to try to make that plan a little more attractive to relief so they can join the plan. Offers some vesting alternatives to them, and then removes a sort of 5-year freeze on the benefit that retirees can receive after they join the plan. In addition, there are provisions here that were recommended by the state auditors firefighter working group. Those are quite technical. The one relates to this benefit limit that is currently in the statutes and is being revised. There is another provision in the bill that in the DE that will allow for payments to alternate payees under a divorce decree, which wasn't technically permitted prior to this, and now they are going to be able to do it. There's also a new requirement which requires the state auditor to provide some investment information to each relief association that compares their returns on their investments to the returns on the State Board of Investment, to make sure that they're aware that they may do better if they invest with the SBI. Article 5 adds a new category of professionals to the medical professionals that are allowed to make disability determinations under all of the plan statutes. This new group is called Advanced Practice Registered Nurses, and they are, there are 4 categories of these nurses: clinical nurse specialists, nurse midwives, nurse practitioner, or registered nurse anesthetists. And they are now, as long as they're practicing within the scope of their licensure, they are now able to make disability determinations under all of our plans. Article 6 relates to the State Board of Investment and is a very technical set of changes to statutes governing the SBI. Article 7 is a bill from Representative Koznick, and it relates to, or it does require a study of disability benefits for police officers, and it requires the Department of Labor and Industry to do this study, present a report that needs to be issued no later than January 15th of 2023. The final article in the bill is many technical changes and clarifications. As we go through the bills, or excuse me, the statutes every session, we find a number of incorrect references and language that needs to be cleaned up, and that's what Article 8 does. That is my overview.
Thank you, Ms. Lancheski, for that.
All right. Yeah, Ms. Lancheski, a shout out to you and your staff. That staff summary, I was following along as you were going through it. A lot of work went into putting all that together and with all those bills. So to summarize so much work so concisely is quite the task. So it's very helpful just to have that 13-page document. It's 13 pages, but it's very nicely laid out. So thanks for all your work on that.
Thank you.
All right, let me just get over to my testifier sheet here. I got like 4,000 screens open at the moment. Okay, next on the list of testifiers is, I have Mr. Chad Burkett. Chad, if you could introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony. Is Chad on the call?
I think Ms. Lancheski's got her hand up.
Oh, hi. Sorry, Ms. Lancheski. Yes.
Sorry, Representative Carlson. Chad's actually not on the call. He's on his way to a wedding in Detroit. So I had to squeeze that in among all the other things, but he's not on the call. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'm glad he's, going someplace fun. Weddings are more fun than funerals, that's for sure. The rest of the testifiers I have as needed. Is anybody else wanting to testify on this particular bill? Raise your hand, unmute yourself, give me a shout out. It's a lot of material here, so I want to make sure we don't miss anybody. Okay, so seeing no further testifiers, we're going to move on to member questions. All right, well, Chair Nelson, see, I think this all just goes to Ms. Lancheski's, solid work. I'm putting together the summary. All of the questions all the answers were presented in the report. So staff and members have all the information they need. So Chair Nelson, closing comments, final thoughts on the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And again, this is the work of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement for this year. It's moving forward. My understanding from Chair Rosen on the Pension Commission that we're going to be looking at maybe another bill that has some cost to it going forward. But this is what we have for now. And members, this is helping in some cases individuals and just tweaks to the Pension Commission and to the pension legislation. And members, our pensions are earned by our employees every day that they work. Every hour that they work, they pay in money to these pensions with the promise at the end of their working lives, they will have an income that can sustain them through the rest of their lives. And that's what this bill is about. And so members, with that, I'll renew my motion that House File 4017 as amended be referred to the Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, excellent. Chair Nelson renews his motion to refer House File 4017 as amended to the Committee on Ways and Means. Mr. Brinks, would you please take the roll?
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Nelson votes aye. Vice Chair Carlson.
Aye.
Carlson votes aye. Representative Nash. Representative Bonner.
Aye.
Bonner votes aye. Representative Jaskowski.
No.
Jaskowski votes nay. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins votes aye. Representative Greenman.
Aye.
Greenman votes aye. Representative Klevorn.
Claiborne, aye.
Klevorn votes aye. Representative Kosnick.
Aye.
Kosnick votes aye. Representative Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason votes aye. Representative New Brindley. Representative Pulowski.
Pulaski,
New
aye.
Brindley, aye. New Brindley,
Brin-
aye.
New Brindley votes aye. Representative Pulowski votes aye. Representative Quam.
Aye.
Quam votes aye. Representative Nash.
Aye.
Nash votes aye. Chair, with a vote of 12 ayes and 1 nay, the motion prevails.
Correct. With a vote of 12 ayes and 1 nay, the bill is adopted as amended. With that, back to you, Chair Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, the next bill we have on our agenda is the continuation of House File 4036. We heard this earlier, and there was some questions about an amendment. And so Representative Klevorn, the bill's before us. So if you want to explain it again briefly, and then we'll get to your amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And we did hear this bill on 24th, I believe, so just a week ago. The House File 4036 is a legislative task force established to examine aging demographics and issues affecting health, aging, and to determine the necessity for a State Department of Aging. It requires a report and money is appropriated. And in the hearing, before we received the fiscal note very late, and so I didn't have an opportunity to review the fiscal note prior to the last hearing. So today, I bring forward 2 amendments to address the issues that were in the fiscal note. And I would encourage the public and members to refer to attachments in today's packet. One is on the counties that are aging in our state, and the other is an amendment, is a letter of support from Ms. Kelso, who testified at the last hearing. Both Ms. Kelso and Dr. Gogler are here today to answer questions if the committee members have them. But really, my purpose today is to add these 2 amendments to clarify issues that were in the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So Representative Klevorn, do you want to move your A1 amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the A1 amendment to House File 4036. The A1.
And do you want to briefly explain it? Yep.
Yes, thank you. The A1 completes the appropriation for the bill, and it on page 3, line 22, it deletes the empty appropriation and inserts $138,000. On line 3, after the period, it inserts the base appropriation of is $140,000 in fiscal year 2024 and thereafter. And that is the A1 amendment.
Questions on the amendment? Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll direct this question towards you. Where is the appropriation coming out of? Do you have a target? Do you have a target?
Representative Nash, if it gets included in the omnibus bill that we're working on, it'd be part of our target, yes.
So this will be held over for inclusion?
That's what it was laid over. It's going to be laid over for possible inclusion, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions? If not, if everybody wants to unmute, all in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Amendment's adopted. The next amendment we have is the A22. Representative Klevorn, you want to move your amendment and then explain what it does?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do move the A22-0393 amendment to the House File 4036.
And you want to kind of explain what it does? It looks like it's technical nature, but
It is technical in nature, but as I said previously, in reading through the fiscal note, there were questions that came forward and I wanted to make sure that the bill was clear. So it clarifies who the designees for the members may be. So for example, on page 3, line 10, after the article A, it says board, it inserts a board member as designee. So if it is the Board of Aging, then the designee must also be a member of the Board of Aging. The same is true on page 3, line 11. It just clarifies that the designee must be an agency employee. Page 3, line 12, it inserts that the designee must be a council member, except it clarifies that the council member is not to be also a legislative council member. And then on page 3, line 13, you'll see that the University of Minnesota, their designee must also be a University of Minnesota employee designee. And then important, it notes on page 3, line 16, it states that the task force will in fact expire after it issues its report. So it inserts an expiration date of June 1st, 2026. And then it adds a subdivision 4, which is about the meetings. And it states that the task force will meet at least once a month, and that those meetings will take place at the Capitol Complex. If for some reason the Capitol Complex is not available, the meetings can be held remotely by video conference, telephone, or any other remote means acceptable. And it also starts a starting date where the legislative member appointed as chair must call, or shall call, word is shall call the first monthly meeting no later than September 28th, 2022. Further, it goes on to add a subdivision 5, which clarifies the per diems and who would be qualified for per diem and how those per diems would be determined. And then yes, I think that clarifies the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you, Representative Klevorn. Questions, members of the amendment? If not, again, people to unmute. And all in favor of the A220393 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. The motions or the amendments approved. I see we have a couple of testifiers again. Dr. Gagler, you want to identify yourself for the record?
It's Gogler.
Gogler, I'm sorry. I think I messed it up last time too. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Sorry.
Proceed, identify yourself and proceed.
Sure. Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Again, I'm Joe Gogler. I direct the Center for Healthy Aging and Innovation and the Bold Public Health Center of Excellence on Dementia Caregiving here at the University of Minnesota and its School of Public Health. I'll just kind of build on the comments I mentioned last week. I think an effort like this, an initiative like this, is important to consider for the state of Minnesota, in that it will allow us to explore better how we can integrate the various offices, the various initiatives related to aging across the state in ways that can identify pathways to better health, better quality of life for older people, as well as those who care for them, and also to potentially identify key efficiencies within the work that is going on across multiple areas of the state to, again, result in what I think and I hope we all could agree on, which is to establish and maintain older person's optimal quality of life in ways that they choose to live. So that is why, on behalf of the Center for Healthy Aging and Innovation, why I'm strongly in support of this, and I'm excited to be included in this initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Doctor. The next person we have on our list is Kathleen Kelso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'll make this very quick. Just a reminder that as of next year in 2023, we will reach a milestone here in Minnesota. We will have over 1 million people 65 years of age and older. And in the next 8 years, Minnesota will have about 300,000 more people over the age of 75. And this is a reminder that the task force is specifically to study the necessity for a department. It does not guarantee a department on aging, but one hopes that from the effort by the task force, we will have achieved a first step toward a multi-decade planning and implementation that would be measurable and accountable to Minnesotans through a department or some other means. A legislative task force will address critical questions about necessity for a built infrastructure for aging. And a legislative task force is necessary because we require a statewide plan for aging that will drive fundamental change and how we support Minnesota families in aging. The Minnesota Board on Aging doesn't have the capacity to examine this question as thoroughly as a legislative task force. It doesn't have the authority to examine this question as does a legislative task force. And we are convinced, and the Minnesota Board on Aging, that the formation of a task force is the best step we as a state can take to serve current and future elders in Minnesota. You will also note in the handouts a list of the 15 counties that are experiencing aging at a much more rapid pace than their colleagues of the other counties. And this number is simply going up almost exponentially. Thank you for your help in this and your support.
Ms. Kelso, if you want to state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, my name is Kathleen Kelso. I'm a board member of the Minnesota Board on Aging.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Representative Elkins.
Yeah, I want to speak in favor of this. I mean, we're approaching, as Ms. Kelso is pointing out, a series of demographic inflection points over just the next 5 years. As seniors, and the leading edge of the baby boom generation is going to start reaching the age of 80 in the next 5 years. And that's going to have a profound impact on the demand for healthcare services, senior housing, paratransit services. The legislature itself needs the information that this task force will produce just to do our budgeting in a responsible way over the next 5 years in a way that allows the state to anticipate these changes and react to them proactively instead of waiting until we have profound shortages in beds in nursing homes, a profound oversubscription of paratransit services, a huge need for just basic senior housing as we all the demographers tell us that we all want to age in our homes as long as we can, but they also tell us that when we get into our late 70s and early 80s, we lose that choice. We get to a point where we have to consider more assisted living types of situations, and we can't handle those stairs anymore. And all of that's going to happen in the next 5 years. So we need the information that this task force will produce. Comment, not question. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Elkins. Any other member questions? Any other member questions? Doctor, you got your hand up. Did you have something you needed to add or?
Yeah, just very briefly, I wanted to build off of Representative Elkins' comments related to demographic trends in aging. One demographic trend that doesn't get as much attention, but I think is even more critical when considering the future of aging and aging in place in Minnesota or elsewhere, is the fact that the number of available family caregivers for older people is expected to decline precipitously over the next 30 years. When you think of long-term care in the United States and Minnesota, it's not the nursing home, it's not a home health agency, it's families. that is what we rely on by and large, and that is who we rely on to provide care to older people. How will we offset this impending gap in the next 20, 30 years? I mean, I think that is a key issue. It certainly animates myself and my work. And again, if this task force comes into being, it's something that we will think through and address. How do we offset and bridge what I call the family care gap? And so I think that's an important issue for all of us to consider.
Thank you. And members, as our retired former state demographer used to say every time she gave a talk, is that our workforce is getting, Minnesota is getting older 1 year at a time. Representative Klevorn, if you want to wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for allowing me to bring this bill back before the committee and make the necessary changes that make the bill better. And I thank you, each of you who provided me with comments and inputs to make the bill better. So thank you for that. But I also, I just want to say this is a bill that will allow us to age in community, not in isolation, but in community, and to find a better path forward. So thank you, members, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Klevorn. With that, members, we'll lay this bill over for possible inclusion. Next bill we have on our agenda, members, is House File 4664. Representative Greenman, Representative Greenman, if you want to move your bill, and again, this is going to be laid over for possible inclusion also. Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that House File 4664 be laid over for possible inclusion.
The bill's been laid, the bill's before us, the motion's been made. Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a straightforward bill that builds on the Dropbox security and integrity provisions that we passed into law last year. As we've heard in past hearings in this committee, and what local administrators are telling us, is that more and more voters are preferring to vote no excuse absentee, and secure Dropboxes are a trusted method of ballot return. This bill does three things. First, it requires standard signage and ballot collection logs and reports. The jurisdictions are required to keep a log for each Dropbox to record the date and time of ballot collection, the person who collected the ballots, and the number of ballots collected. This creates a simple standard process for a practice that most jurisdictions are already doing, but it'll standardize it across jurisdictions. Two, it adds some fairness around Dropbox access by ensuring that voters will have at least one Dropbox location, and for the most populous jurisdictions, that they'll have one Dropbox location for every 50,000 registered voters. And it provides the Minnesota's federally recognized tribes the ability to have a Dropbox location on a site that's selected by each tribe. Lastly, it provides the legislature with more information on ballot returns in the Secretary of State's post-election report. Specifically, it expands that report to include the number of ballots being returned by the method of return, whether it's Dropbox, mail, in-person, or direct in-person balloting. This policy will provide the legislature better information to understand trends in voters' preferred method of ballot return. And that's information that will help us make decisions about what voters and local jurisdictions that serve them want and need for us to make policy. In short, this policy simply adds uniform standards around signage and ballot collection. It bolsters access to Dropboxes for voters in the most populous jurisdictions and on tribal reservations. And it expands the post-election report to include methods of ballot return. With that, Mr. Chair, I believe someone from the Secretary of State's office plans on testifying.
Thank you, Representative Greenman. Members, we have a couple people here who needed to answer questions. Ms. Nicole Freeman from the opposite, and Mr. David Medea from the Office of the Secretary of State. Get my tongue out of the way there. Members, any questions of the bill? Any questions of the bill? Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Greenman. As I look through, I noticed the ballot collection log and report. The county auditor and municipal clerk must maintain a log. I don't see any instruction on how often the ballots need to be collected. Am I missing that, or is that included in the bill?
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me turn it over to Ms. Freeman. We in the language we passed last year, it included specifics, a schedule around ballot collection, and so it's not in this bill because it's already in law. But let me just make sure, because I think let me make sure that Nicole Freeman describes what it actually is, the law.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Freeman. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. Nicole Freeman from the Office of Secretary of State. Current statute requires that ballots are collected every business day during the absentee voting period. So that log would be every day as they're collecting them.
Representative Brindley.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I appreciate then the additional information that needs to be logged with that daily collection. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member questions? Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do notice this allows the bypass of tracking how many ballots a person is dropping off. You may remember in previous testimony and discussion in our committee that we had it brought up and that it was confirmed that this bypassed. So I have some concerns about losing some of our traceability. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just note in the law, there's in the provision, there's signage in notifying the voter that you can only return your own ballot drop box, and then notifying them how to do an agent return. Much like when you drop your absentee ballot off in the mailbox, the same legal standards require that you can only drop off your own ballot.
Representative Quam.
Yes, but there's nobody there, and therefore, even if you have a video, it'd be difficult to see and confirm. So we've had this discussion before, and apparently, if you're not concerned about having guidelines and ensuring integrity, you can go forward with this portion of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Brindley, you've got your hand up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. And I apologize. I was jogging my memory because I knew that we had heard this before. But we talked about the potential costs of the local municipalities, and I'm wondering, Representative Greenman, if you have done any work to figure out what the cost of this is going to be to the local municipalities. I know that there is no amendment with an appropriation to those local municipalities. So I'm wondering if we know yet what the costs will be to them.
And Representative Brindley, before I go to Representative Greenman, in the bill, they don't have to put these up if they don't want to. It's permissive language. The language that was passed last year in the state government finance bill basically talked about. Before that, we had no language, and there was a task force set up over the summer and this fall, and actually into the session dealing with this. So this is what has come out of that task force. Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Brindley, because I share with you that. So we in the last budget passed $2 million for Dropbox grants. I think that those grants are open now. I think that what the secretary what they told the counties was they estimate based on other states that each Dropbox will cost probably less than $10,000, but grants are open and available for $15,000, which covers the Dropbox and technology that is as part of that statute. And so what we anticipate is that for counties doing this, those grants will be available. I certainly am interested in talking about whether it makes sense to, like we did last year, we did $2 million if there's more need to increase those grants. Those are grants directly for the cost of doing this.
Representative Brindley, I mean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Greenman.
Any further questions? Any further questions or comments? If not, Representative Greenman, you want to wrap up your bill, and then we'll lay this over. Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what this does, and I appreciate the clarification questions because it just adds on to the policy that we passed and gives a little bit more structure and a little bit more access to what we passed last year. With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that House file.
Representative Greenman, members can't lay their own bills over. Only the chair can do that. So if you're done, Representative Greenman will lay this bill over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Representative Greenman. That was pointed out to me in a text that only I can lay the bill over. And I thank you for that. The next bill we have on our agenda is House File 3834, and this bill is going to the General Register. Representative Elkins, if you want to make your motion, and we also first we have to adopt a division report. So Representative Mason, if you want to move your division report. You're muted.
I so move the report.
Representative Mason moves the division report from the local government for House File 3834. Members, if you want to unmute, all in favor of the division report, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The report's been adopted. Now, Representative Elkins, if you want to move your bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that 3834 be referred to the General Register.
Thank you. The House File 3834 has been moved to be referred to the General Register. Representative Elkins, explain your bill.
Yeah, this one will be very simple and quick. Bloomington was one of the first cities in the state to establish a housing and redevelopment authority in 1971. And the authority was granted in session law that was updated in 1977 when South St. Paul was added to that session law as well. But in 1987, the legislature completely rewrote the statutes governing housing and redevelopment authorities statewide, and that session law was not updated. And so we have this anomalous situation where for Bloomington and South St. Paul, the authority is muddied. So all this bill does is eliminates that session law so that it's crystal clear that Bloomington and South St. Paul are governed by exactly the same state statutes that every other city in the state are governed by. And that's all there's. So Chelsea Griffin's description, the nonpartisan House research summary is excellent if you want more detail.
And I see we have a testifier if needed, Erica from Bloomington Housing and Redevelopment Authority to answer questions.
Just to answer questions, yes.
Just to answer questions if needed. So members, any questions? Any questions? I'm sure Representative Carlson wants the city of Bloomington to have the confusion of being two statutes, but yeah. Representative Brindley.
I completely agree with Representative Elkins. This is a great bill.
Representative Brindley.
I assume that the city of Bloomington is on board and would like to see this change.
Both the city of Bloomington and
Representative Elkins.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chair. Yes, both cities are fine with this.
Representative Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. They're fine with it. Did they request this? Is this a change they're looking for? I assume.
Yes, exactly. Sorry.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Remember to go through the chair, please. Any other questions? Any other questions or comments? If not, Representative Elkins, do you want to wrap up and
I'll-
renew your motion?
Yep, Mr. Chair, I will renew my motion that House File 3834 be referred to the General Register.
Mr. Briggs, do you want to take the roll?
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Nelson votes aye. Vice Chair Carlson.
Carlson, aye.
Carlson votes aye. Representative Nash.
Aye.
Nash votes aye. Representative Bonner.
Aye.
Bonner votes aye. Representative Joskowski. Representative Joskowski.
Aye.
Joskowski votes aye. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins votes aye. Representative Greenman.
Aye.
Greenman votes aye. Representative Klevorn.
Klevorn, aye.
Klevorn votes aye. Representative Kosnick.
Aye.
Kosnick votes aye. Representative Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason votes aye. Representative New Brindley.
Aye.
New Brindley votes aye. Representative Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski votes aye. Representative Quam.
Yes.
Quam votes aye. Chair with a vote of 13 ayes, the motion prevails.
The motion prevails. The bill's on its way to the General Register. The next bill on our agenda is House File 4141, also a Representative Elkins bill. And this bill is also going to the General Register. So Representative Elkins, do you want to present your bill and make your motion? You're muted, sir.
That would be nice. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I will move that we also refer House File 4141 to the General Register.
Motion's before us and we refer the bill to the General Register. And we also, we got to go back and adopt the division report. Representative Mason, do you want to move the division report? You're muted.
I will move the local government report.
All members, all in favor of the division report, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The division report, the bill's in front of us. And Representative Elkins, renew your motion again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll repeat my motion that we refer House File 4141 to the General Register.
And with that, you want to explain the bill?
I have a testifier today, Mary Tingerfell, who's the former head of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, and she has a short presentation. It has been timed at 5 minutes, and she does a really good job of explaining this bill in the course of the 5-minute presentation. So we'll turn it over to her.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Tingerdahl. If you want to give your name for the record, and then you can proceed with your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mary Tingerfall. I reside in St. Paul. I was the commissioner at the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency until 2019 and have worked in modular work for the last several years. So I have a few slides to share with you. Oops.
You know, it worked fine in local government.
It did. It is not allowing me to share my screen. Oh, here it is. Sorry. A little different interface than the first time.
That looks good.
Okay. Well, we'll see if the video will run. I'm not getting the direction for optimizing video. So if that doesn't run, we just won't show it. Thank you again. And I just want to say that in 2019, when I left Minnesota Housing, I had a little more discretionary time and decided to pursue the idea of modular construction because I believe over time it will reduce the cost of constructing new housing. And I found some philanthropic sponsors to host something called the Construction Revolution Summit. It was an opportunity for developers, construction companies, public officials, architects, lenders, to learn more about the topic. We learned that Minnesota has a rich history of modular construction, including dynamic homes, which has been using modular construction techniques for more than 50 years in Detroit Lakes. I'm here today to ask your support for House File 4141, which will simply add language to the section of an existing statute that already provides that local zoning bodies may not prohibit manufactured homes that otherwise comply with all other zoning ordinances. Simply put, Minnesota has two separate legal provisions that govern the structures that are built in manufacturing facilities. Section 327.31 to 35 deals with manufactured homes, and Minnesota Rules, Chapter 1361, deals with industrialized modular buildings. Manufactured homes are governed by the Code of Federal Regulations, the construction and safety standards for them, and these were adopted way back in 1976 to bring rigorous and standard construction processes to structures that had previously been referred to as mobile homes. And you can think about manufactured homes as those that come on a chassis with wheels and then are placed either on a rental lot or on real property in Minnesota. Industrialized and modular buildings are structures that are manufactured at a location other than the permanent site of occupancy. And because the components of these buildings are manufactured and shipped, with most of the structural components installed and finished, they're defined as closed construction. Minnesota State Building Code, Chapter 1361, governs the manufacture, construction, and occupancy of all such buildings. These buildings must comply with the Minnesota State Building Code in all other respects and receive a seal and data plate from the state inspectors from the Department of Labor and Industry before they can be transmitted to the building site. They may fall under the residential section of the code or the commercial section of the code, depending on whether it's a single family type structure or a commercial multifamily type structure. Minnesota is really fortunate to have several manufacturers that produce industrialized modular structures, employing hundreds of workers in their climate-controlled facilities. Most focus primarily on single-family residences. They're joined by Rise Modular in 2020. It says, I understand my slides are not advancing. They show that they're advancing, but I will just stop sharing here since it appears to not be working. I apologize for that. It did work perfectly in local government, but I will just finish up by saying we're really fortunate to have both Dynamic Homes and several other single-family modular firms in the state, and also a new company in Owatonna called Rise Modular. I just simply ask you to please support this simple amendment offered by House File 4141 to add industrialized modular buildings to the existing statute so that this important type of structure will be allowed in Minnesota communities. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Tingerthal. Questions, Representative Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say I think this is a good bill and I will be voting yes.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing no hands popping up. Representative Elkins, if you want to give a wrap up and then renew your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Representative Nash said, this is a good bill, and I will renew my motion that we refer House File 4141 to the General Register.
Mr. Brinks, please take the roll.
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Nelson votes aye. Vice Chair Carlson.
Aye.
Carlson votes aye. Representative Nash.
Aye.
Nash votes aye. Representative Bonner.
Aye.
Bonner votes aye. Representative Drazkowski.
Aye.
Drazkowski votes aye. Representative Elkins.
Elkins votes aye.
Elkins votes aye. Representative Greenman.
Aye.
Greenman votes aye. Representative Klevorn.
Klevorn, aye.
Klevorn votes aye. Representative Kosnick.
Aye.
Kosnick votes aye. Representative Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason votes aye. Representative New Brindley.
Aye.
New Brindley votes aye. Representative Pulowski.
Pulaski, aye.
Pulowski votes aye. Representative Quam.
Aye.
Quam votes aye. Chair with a vote of 13 ayes, the motion prevails.
The motion prevails. The bill's on its way to the general register. And the last bill we have on our agenda, members, is House File 4271, again, an Elkins bill. And Representative Mason, do you want to move the division report?
Again, I will move the local government division report.
Representative Mason moves the division report for House File 4271. Members, if you want to unmute, all in favor of the division report, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The division report's accepted. Representative Elkins, you want to move your bill? And again, this one's going to Committee on Ways and Means.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will move the House File 4271 be re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Motion's before us. Representative Elkins, you want to explain the bill?
So this one comes out of a series of discussions, a work group that was convened by the Department of Labor and Industry's Construction Code Council. This fall, they convened a technical advisory group of building code and building inspection experts to review a couple of bill provisions that either Senator Draheim, Senator Coran, and I had. And out of that, out of those discussions, there was consensus around two issues. The cities and the municipal building officials were involved in these discussions. And so the one provision basically raises the expense limit that is in terms of building inspection costs, that the threshold which requires a city to report. It has been $5,000. The committee recommended that be raised to $7,000, which reduces the number of cities that will be required to submit this report. General agreement that was an appropriate change. And then the second provision in this reestablishes a process that the Department of Labor and Industry used to do to supervise the way that construction costs for residential construction is estimated. Right now, there is no consistency at all in the way it's being done in cities across the state. Under this one, the DLI would take a national methodology, maintain it so that the numbers are appropriate to the state of Minnesota, and all cities would estimate construction costs on residential development in a consistent way for the purpose of establishing building inspection fees. So the cities would still be free to establish the fee schedules as they want, but the methodology would be consistent. And I believe that Scott McClellan from the Department of Labor and Industry, who supervises this process, is available for questions if there are.
I've got two testifiers, Scott McNowan and Nick Erickson. So Mr. McCowan, please state your name for the tape and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually here just to stand by for questioning, so I don't really have any formal testimony. I'll just stand for questions. And just to clarify that the director, Scott McClellan's on another hearing, so I'm sitting in today for that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody would have that after Mr. Erickson testifies.
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. Mr. Erickson, if you want to identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Nick Erickson. I'm the Director of Research and Regulatory Affairs for Housing First Minnesota, and I was a participant in the technical review that DLI held last fall and into the winter related to Representative Elkins' bill to legalize new starter homes in Minnesota. Minnesota has the highest new home costs in the Midwest. Currently, our median new home price is $110,000 more than in Wisconsin and $88,000 above the median new home price in Illinois. By virtually every measure, it is more expensive to build a new home in Minnesota than anywhere else in the region, which is problematic considering we have the lowest available inventory in the entire United States here in Minnesota. Representative Elkins' bill addresses a small part of the state's housing cost problems. Now, fixing building permits alone will not solve the state's housing issues. Achieving greater affordability and availability of homes will take broad-based reforms across 36 areas. Today, as Representative Elkins said, building permits must be established based on the valuation. Now, this valuation is set by the local building official based on information provided by the builder. This reference point, as Representative Elkins noted, is partially based on square footage. Yet between the valuation of costs submitted by the builder, which are in some cases updated weekly, if not monthly, because of their changing price dynamics, we do see that the true cost to build these homes is not reflected in the valuation. And this is problematic and confusing for one reason. Valuation is what we call in the industry sticks, bricks, and labor, meaning it is just the structure itself. This valuation cannot include the lot, the land, any in-development improvements, any fees paid for the municipality, or any other exactions as part of the development process. Now, I've been tracking this valuation change for several years. And so far in 2022 through Q1, the data we've received, we're seeing that on average, the valuation is about 25% higher than what the actual cost to construct that home is. However, we have seen some valuation increases go as high as $150,000 higher than the actual cost to build a modest two-story home. This bill does level the playing field. It creates consistency. As I said, because it does not include the lot or land, it's just the structure. We should not be seeing any real differences when we're tracking valuation across the metro, given a similar home built across 20, 30 municipalities. If a municipality feels it does need more building permit fees, the proper course of action is to adjust the fee schedule, not to arbitrarily increase the valuation of the home. Square footage is a kind of a emerging concept, almost going back to the past a bit. We're seeing states and municipalities across the country shift more towards this exact method of establishing building permit fees by moving to the square footage requirement. So with that, I can ask or stand for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
I see Representative Nash, you have your hand up for a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Wanted to thank Representative Elkins for this bill. This has been an issue that I've been working on even since before he got to the legislature. This practice that this bill would correct is hampering people from getting into their homes. It does provide a fairly wide swing on pricing for people. And as we've spoken about it both in this committee and in other committees and the Commission on Housing that I'm a co-chair of, that for every $1,000 you add to the price of a home, you're pricing out 4,000 potential buyers. So this is a good piece of legislation, and I will be voting yes.
Thank you, Representative Nash. Any further questions or comments? Members? And I go slow to be sure that somebody's hand doesn't pop up. Representative Elkins, if you want to do a brief wrap up and then renew your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nope, this is a good bill, and I will renew my motion that we refer House File 4271 to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Motion is to move the bill to the Committee on Ways and Means. Mr. Brinks, please take the roll.
Thank you. Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Nelson votes aye. Vice Chair Carlson.
Aye.
Carlson votes aye. Representative Nash.
Aye.
Nash votes aye. Representative Bonner.
Aye.
Bonner votes aye. Representative Jaskowski.
No.
Jaskowski votes nay. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins votes aye. Representative Greenman.
Aye.
Greenman votes aye. Representative Klevorn.
Klevorn, aye.
Klevorn votes aye. Representative Kosnick.
Aye.
Kosnick votes aye. Representative Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason votes aye. Representative New Brindley.
Aye.
New Brindley votes aye. Representative Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski votes aye. Representative Quam.
Aye.
Quam votes aye. Chair with a vote of 12 ayes and 1 nay, the motion prevails.
The motion prevails. The bill's on its way to Ways and Means. Well, members, we got done a little earlier than I anticipated, which is good. Our next meeting is tomorrow, Friday, April 1st, and please, no April Fool's jokes. We've got, again, an aggressive agenda, and hopefully we can get through that tomorrow morning. And we know it's like around here on our second deadline week. So members, if there aren't any questions, we are adjourned.